If I could go back in time, I would go to the labs of the early biomechanical researchers and tell them that publishing their studies may have caused more harm than good. And to prove my credibility, I'd show them a knees over toes. And to prove my credibility, I'd show them a knees over toes guy video. I often hear people say things like, my insert joint here would explode if I tried that. And this belief partially comes from these studies and the fact that people have been told that there are inherently dangerous movements. But these inherently dangerous movements might actually be some of the most normal and useful movements you could possibly train. I mean, imagine a world where everyone can get up from a chair with no problem, or their shoulder doesn't hurt when they play catch with their kids, or they can pick up the groceries without throwing out their back. Because if you can pick up your body weight from the floor with a rounded back, do you seriously think the groceries are going to hurt you? The problem with these pig spine studies that show that spinal flexion is bad and the pressure studies is that they make the assumption that that equals bad. I mean, you would not tell someone to stop doing a bicep curl because there's increased pressure in their elbow joint. No, that makes no sense. So how is the back any different? They also assume that the human body is just fragile, that it can't be used and it can't adapt. But one of the coolest parts about being alive and not a dead pig spine is that you actually can adapt, and that is the whole process of how you get stronger. You expose yourself to stress and stimuli and load, which increases the load on the joints too, and then you get stronger, right? And that's awesome. Because of this fear mongering, people have been avoiding these positions for so long. And if you don't train something, guess what happens when you get into that position? You get hurt. So maybe it's not actually the fact that the movement is bad, but the fact that you just weren't prepared for the movement. If you've never rounded your back in your life and you go for a heavy set of deadlifts and you're really trying to get it up on that last rep and you start rounding your back and you throw it out, are deadlifts bad for your back, or were you just not ready?
Believing that low back rounding is bad, therefore not training it because you think it's bad, therefore having a low tolerance to actually producing force in that position, therefore leading to greater amounts and greater magnitudes of injuries in those positions. And by the way, this applies to all positions and all exercises. It doesn't just apply to a rounded back type of hinge.
And I think a common response from other people who see the kind of weird things that I do, or that, people in this bulletproofing niche, I guess, do, is they'll be like, oh, that's stupid, that's risky, you're gonna hurt yourself. And sure, a Jefferson curl is probably riskier than a glute ham raise, but I mean, at the same time, weightlifting is one of the least risky sports ever. You are more likely to die every single time you drive your car to work than you are to die from doing a Jefferson curl, but people have no problem driving to work. Recreational weight training is probably one of the safest sports because you have control over all the variables. You can control your form, you can control how much weight is on the bar, you can control your sets, your reps, your rep ranges. You can control pretty much everything. Besides maybe faulty equipment, if you mess up, it's kind of just your fault. Also, on the topic of risk, just because something is risky does not necessarily mean it is bad. If no one ever took risks, not much would get done. Could you imagine if kids weren't allowed to play on the playground because they might fall? That would be stupid. Sometimes it's actually doing the risky things that allows us to become stronger. I've always found the fear-mongering of these exercises so goofy because so many of them are just so necessary for daily life. If you drop something, you're not gonna get into perfect deadlift form to pick it up. You're gonna round your back and you're gonna pick it up. If you go to pet your dog, you're not gonna get into an optimal squat stance and make sure your knee doesn't go over your toe. You're just gonna squat down on your heels. And if you're picking up a box and you need to raise it above your head, or you need to put something in a cabinet, you're not gonna do like a push press or some ridiculous thing. You're just gonna internally rotate your shoulder and get it up. And I'm not saying that everyone in the world should be doing these exercises at the maximum, the final evolution of them. But what I am saying is that people should be working up to them. They just need to find an entry point. And I'll be the very first to say that if you already have ongoing problems or you aren't a specimen, then you really shouldn't just be jumping straight into these things. That's definitely not what I'm saying. This is more of like an end goal. You just need to find the entry point that works for you. You need to be able to properly progress it. You need to be able to do enough volume without it being incredibly painful, right? You need to be able to build that tolerance to the position so you can eventually progress and eventually one day even get to that, final stage. The truth is, a lot of people are probably going to start a lot with a lot less than what they want to. And I think that's another reason that people get hurt doing these so much, because they believe they are more competent than they actually are. I firmly believe that progressing these unsafe exercises is truly a way to unlock your health. It offers a triad of pretty awesome physiological stuff. It increases your strength, it increases your muscle mass, and it increases your real world functionality. It kind of does not get better than that. Have a good day, you guys.